Good morning, everyone. We're winding up September. I can't believe it's already October, but it is September 29th, and I am Jen Bordeaux with New Direction Family Law, coming to you with another segment of Family Law Uncorked. And today we're going to be talking about selling your home during a divorce. And my guest today is very well-versed in this process, specifically with what all it entails working with a couple that is going through a divorce and selling the marital home. So today I'm joined by Meredith Pope. So Meredith, thank you so much for being here with me today across the virtual world here.
That's right. Well, yeah, thanks for having me. And this platform works. This is all we have now, really. So
yeah,
good to be here.
And thankfully we do have it.
Exactly.
We'll get into the meat and potatoes here of why selling a house during a divorce is a little bit different of an animal. But why don't you start off by just telling everybody who you are and how you got into the real estate field?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Meredith Pope, as Jen introduced me. I am a real estate agent with Keller Williams, and I came into real estate as a second career. I started as a psychotherapist, and I went through a divorce and had some opportunities to really think about my career, myself, and I changed directions and became a real estate agent. I didn't know at the time how much my divorce and my training as a psychotherapist would continue on into my career as a real estate agent, but it absolutely has. It's impacted me greatly. And these are the folks that I like to work with because, as you said, Jen, there are some special considerations when you're going through a divorce and you're needing to sell a home or buy a new home. And I've been there, and I have a few stories, some good and some bad. And I love hearing everybody's story along the way and helping them get kind of to the other side of wherever they need to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And you're right. I mean, and that's just a great segue into getting us started, to discuss our topic as to why selling a home during a divorce is not just selling a home. And as you mentioned, you went through the divorce process. I've been through the divorce process, and we were introduced by a mutual friend, and he introduced and, right away, I mean, you could tell just this very, genuine organic conversation happened around divorce, and the process is it's not just selling a house, because there's so much that's wrapped up, or there's it stands as a symbol as part of the divorce when you're going through that process, and all these other things that you're taking on, not just deciding what to do with the marital home. So let's talk about that a little bit. First of all, I love that you have a background as a psychotherapist, because us working in family law, we know that it is a very emotionally driven area of law. There's no doubt about it. It's completely understandable. I mean, people are coming to us in one of the worst times of their lives. And so generally when you're buying or selling a home, you're pretty happy about that process. You're either super excited because you're either moving to a new location, or you're, expanding, maybe moving into a bigger home, or you're buying a home, which, is super exciting in its own right. But divorce kind of makes it a mixed bag. So, and again, just going back to all that emotional turmoil and what that house may symbolize to people. So I love that you have that psychotherapist background to really understand what that looks like for people and the emotions that they're having to face on top of making all these decisions to selling a house. So, why did you choose? Obviously, you've got your personal experience, right, with your own divorce, but why did you choose to, I guess, kind of focus in on people that are going through a divorce with the home selling process?
Yeah, exactly. So, it did come from personal experience. And when I realized that there was this need that was perhaps not being met, and it's all the things you talked about, the emotional meaning of the house, the ups and downs emotionally of the folks having to do this very tricky transaction, which is always tricky. But now that all the layers on top of it, of the emotions, and I just thought, as I learned, goodness gracious, there is so much that I have learned and that I have gained from experience that I would love to pass on to other people. And exactly what you said, Jen, about the house having the house has emotional meaning. Um, it's hard for people to say goodbye to a house in normal circumstances, and then add on, they're going through a divorce. They may have children or family members to care for. Um, they're in a, fight, flight, or freeze mentality through this trauma that is divorce. And so when I check in with them, so many times the realtor has to get signatures or bounce an idea off somebody or tell them that the photographer is coming for photos. I may catch a person and they may be in bed that day. They may not be having a good day. They can't have the photographer over. I am prepared for those ups and downs. And that's so important because we don't want this transaction to be derailed, because there is so much that can happen. Just naturally, people having difficulty getting themselves organized, understanding the process. But then also there's a potential for the transaction of the selling of the home to be used in a manipulative way against each other. And so, I say people are sometimes not their best selves always, but especially during divorce. And so I like all of those difficulties to come to me. And so I choose to communicate separately with each party. We're not going to get on a group call to talk about an offer that came in. We're not going to meet together, even virtually. We're not going to meet together to talk about the ins and outs and how things work. I'm going to do that separately because these folks are working towards separating. And while the house was bought jointly, they are now making independent decisions on what they need to get from the house in order to move forward. So yeah, I just kind of like to juggle and be aware of all of the emotions that somebody can be carrying on the moment I connect with them throughout the entire process. And as we know, to sell a home, usually from start to finish could take, it could take 6 months, but at the shortest, it could take 2 months. That's a long time. And so, yeah, I'm really glad that I love working with people who they have this intention and realization, like, yes, we need to sell the house. I may not want to leave the house, but I know I need to sell the house. And I want to hear more about that because I want to pace our progress and our moving towards getting the house ready for sale. I want to pace that to match where they are and where the kids are, actually, if kids are involved.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And you touching on communicating with the parties separately is a big thing, because even in a very amicable situation, you are so spot on. The couple is still separating and they may still be very amicable or trying to do this as amicably as possible. And we love those situations because, especially when there's kids involved, but they're still separating and it's still discussing something of a life that is no longer of a symbol of their togetherness, so to speak. And now doing that in a stage where they're trying to untangle the life that they had together. So even in amicable situations, that can still be tough, and it can still kind of, drudge up feelings and emotions. And at this point, selling the house really, if that is what's happening, almost just kind of needs to become transactional at its core there, even though you understand and are aware and sensitive to the emotional needs of the parties involved. Even if, spouses generally, usually see that one spouse initiated or wanted the divorce more so than the other spouse. But here we are going through the divorce. And no matter on whichever side the spouses are on with that, there's still a grieving process that happens for both. And people react differently. Some people just want to cut things off, cut ties, move forward, and just be very short, black and white to the point and move on and not even face any of the emotional stuff. Other people, like you said, have days where it's hard to get out of bed. and let alone make a decision about what the house should be put on the market for, or trying to schedule around having showings at the house and things like that, or what needs to be done to get ready to sell it and put it on the market. So it's a lot. It's overwhelming, and it's overwhelming in its own right, let alone then whenever you're still just trying to make your way through the fog that divorce, the emotional and mental, fog that divorce creates. And still, if there's kids involved, and still taking care of kids at the same time. So it's just, it can be so much. I mean, I recently just went through the home buying process on my own, and it was a lot on my own, just in a healthy, healed state, so to speak, so let alone whenever you're facing all of that. So I love that you're aware and that you are cognizant of that. You might meet someone on a good day that they're feeling more refreshed and accepting their new reality and what's happening, but then you may call the next week about something and they're just not here for any of it.
Exactly. And I love what you said, Jen, about like just being aware that this is like these folks are disengaging from the relationship, they're detangling, they're starting again to individuate and think for themselves, have to make decisions for themselves. And usually in every relationship, right, there's some kind of dynamic going on with that couple. And know this socially, right? You can have dinner with a couple and somebody's more talkative or somebody's more tuned in, or however we want to say it. That will continue on through the divorce, right? And so especially with this real estate transaction, because oftentimes the house is the biggest asset that they have, and they need this house to fund their future, to fund their divorce sometimes. It's the biggest asset, and their mortgage is their biggest debt. And here we are in an emotional time, right, with all these ups and downs, and add in the component that is how the couple historically has operated within the relationship. That can continue on through the real estate process and can continue to involve hurt because somebody's voice isn't being heard. Somebody is making decisions unilaterally. I want to bring it back to where we are moving forward. That person maybe who didn't have as much of a voice now has especially half a voice. And so in the communication, since it's separate, we're trying to get away from that dynamic of having somebody perhaps having more say, and it bounces back to me, and I am kind of the middle person. And so, it's like, let me do the negotiating, and I will absolutely respect each of you individually where you are with this, but let's bring it back to me and let's carry on with this transaction because you need this to happen to move forward.
Yeah. Sometimes we come across situations like you said, like the house can be their biggest asset, and the mortgage can be their biggest debt. So when we're looking at helping someone through the divorce process, finances is obviously a big part of it. Children and finances, the biggest parts of it. And sometimes we talked about the house being a symbol of memories and a life that is now forever changed and things like that. And so people, not all, but sometimes people will have a hard time really letting go of the house. They want to do whatever they can to stay in the house because the kids were raised in the house, and they just have it. I think it just means that would be a finality, and it's a big change to have to move out of the house and things like that, which is understandable because change is hard for most people. And this is a lot of change happening at one time. So sometimes we have people that are just fighting tooth and nail. They don't want to sell the home. They want to stay in the home and refinance. And for some people, that makes total sense. But when we really look at the finances of things and this new budget of moving from generally a two-income household to two separate income households, how do you help someone? I know that you generally will have like a mortgage lender that's going to really break down their finances and help them see exactly where they are. And then we have certain documents and things through the legal side that help break down date of separation and future expenses and budgets to see things like that as well, looking at income and debts and all that kind of stuff. But how do you, from the realtor standpoint, help someone who maybe is really struggling to let go of the house, or see that probably financially is in their best interest to sell the home as compared to trying to refinance it, or because financially just may be detrimental that they try to continue to make that mortgage on their own and things like that? How do you help people in those situations?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jen. You're right. There are some people who they could know in their mind, like, I can't afford this. Neither one of us can stay. We're going to need to sell the home. But they don't want to go. The home has emotional meaning. They believe that the children also might be emotionally attached to the home. They have friends or neighbors or their school or memories in that home. And so, yeah, I do work very closely in conjunction with other trusted advisors, lenders, financial planners, divorce coaches. And we try to help the person however they need to get there, and at whatever pace, again, that they need to get there. I like to, and divorce attorneys, like having a few more people come to the table to weigh in from their industry, saying, if you do this, then this, and letting that sit with the person for a while. There's also, like, in terms of real estate, there are some things I like to encourage the folks to do, even if they say that they don't want to leave the house. And that is, let's go look at a house. If you were to move, do you know what neighborhood you like? We know from the lender that with spousal support, this is about, or not spousal support, or if you change jobs, or this is about what you can afford. Let's just go out on a Saturday afternoon, just look around and see how it feels to you. Can you envision the kids here? Do you like the space? Do you like the neighborhood? Could this be a new beginning? A lot of times, parents in particular, like I said, they believe, and it could be absolutely true, that the children want to stay, that it will be disruptive or traumatic to remove them and move from the home. And that may be true, but I also believe that it may not be true, that the children may have also gone through a separation. They also may have known that a divorce was coming, something was coming. They may want also a new beginning, maybe in the same school district, close to their friend. But the children also have been in that home and feed off of our energy. So if I'm in the home saying, it's very obvious, I'm walking around very upset, or verbalizing, I don't want to leave the home. Oh, where are we ever going to go? And we do that because we are hurting. The child picks up on that, and guess what? They don't want to leave the home. And so I just like to encourage folks to get resources, get support to help them work through this process, and tune into the children and ask them, and ask ourselves, what really are we holding on to here? Is there a way to say goodbye that's a really healthy goodbye and look so forward to this next step? Maybe it's a smaller house. Great. I don't have as much lawn to mow. I don't have as many bathrooms to clean. Like, there is an upside. So I do honor that there is emotional meaning, and it is hard to go, but we can do it at the right pace and do it meaningfully and say our goodbyes and say our new hellos. And hopefully that'll get folks to a better place, just generally overall with where they need to be since they're divorcing.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, that's a big perspective shift that has to happen, right? Mm-hmm. Because when you're going through divorce and you're feeling hurt and all of this disruption is happening, it's so much easier to focus on the past and miss what is no longer, mm-hmm. and focus on what was, and think about what was supposed to be and stuff. And it's so much easier, unfortunately, when you're in that mental and emotional state, mm-hmm. to focus on that as opposed to what could be and what still lies ahead and what this could mean, like you said, for a new beginning. Yeah. Because people that are very resistant to leave or to sell the marital mm-hmm. property, eventually, even if they didn't see it right away, it might just be a constant source of keeping that wound open and salt in the wound, and a constant reminder of those things, of what has happened. And I don't like to call it a loss, even though it is, there is definitely a grieving process. I try to be a positive Patty most days, you know, and say, you know, it was a chapter in your life. It is not the end of your story. And so I think that's great. And being able to try to say, I understand and I hear you, and I can completely understand why you feel this way and why it's hard to move out of this home, or feel like you're giving up this home, or that you don't want to move because of the children. But the new opportunity, I mean, this is just kind of like closing, you know, that chapter and just moving into a fresh new start. That has, who knows what all kinds of opportunities, you know, like I know, again, for me personally, I have no problem sharing my story. That's what it was for me. I was in the marital home, you know, by myself for a couple of months before it sold, and it was terrible to come back to. I ended up having to move out into my own place before it sold, because it was just a constant reminder. I felt like it was just this constant gray cloud every time I came home. So immediately, as soon as I got into a new space, and we can kind of touch on this real quick and then we'll wrap up. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but you and I previously spoke about this too. I moved into renting. I didn't sell the home and move straight into buying, because that would have been a whole nother transaction that my mind, I was just not ready for.
Absolutely.
Whatsoever, you know, financially, mentally, emotionally. I knew I needed a fresh space, you know, to call my own, and that was completely separate, but was not, you know, ready to do that undertaking. So I would assume that in those situations, when you're helping sellers, you know, do you help them figure out what, you know, their next step as far as either looking at buying or, you know, renting for a little bit and things like that?
Absolutely. That's such a great point. I almost all the time would encourage somebody to rent. If they don't know where they want to go, if they're in their financial situation will be new. They Some people are in the dark. I was in the dark. I didn't know how a mortgage worked. I didn't know I needed home insurance. And then I needed to get somebody to mow the lawn, general upkeep, maintenance. I didn't know what I could afford. Everything was very, very new. If you move to a rental, you have an opportunity to catch your breath, you know, have somebody else worry about all those things, enjoy your space, lots of self-care, you know, love on your people, and you will know when you're ready. You'll know. You might now at that point be more open to a different kind of house, a different kind of neighborhood, because you've had time to sit within this transition time, to evaluate your finances, yourself personally, the children, and then to move, like to initiate proactively, like, yeah, this is what I want now. That's an awesome place to be. So I do work with a number of people who rent is the best solution, short term, long term. It doesn't matter. I think that's a great point, Jen, and thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Meredith, I can't thank you enough. I was so glad that we got introduced. We at New Direction, we are very protective of our clients, because we know that they are, you know, they just need a little extra love and care and, you know, support whenever they're going through this. And so to be able to connect with like-minded individuals that just get it, just simply get it. They, you know, they understand all that comes with it, aside from just the legal separating of lives and the legally no longer married that comes with divorce. And, you know, it affects a lot of people. Like we're easy to throw around the term divorce, but it affects people. Every person's situation is unique. And specific to them, whether you've had 3 or 4 friends that have been through it as well. And they might say, yeah, in my divorce, I did this. Well, at the time that they were going through the divorce, they probably felt all these things too, but they got past it. And so now you're in the midst of your particular situation, and that is specific to you. And that deserves to be honored and supported and treated to help you get to that other side of divorce as well. So thank you for the work that you do in helping people. And right now it's a seller's market. So if you are going through a divorce and you need to sell your home, it's a great time to do it in the Raleigh and Triangle area. So
true.
So Meredith, if people are interested in speaking with you more or getting in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Thank you. You can find some more information on my website, which is realtormeredith.com. And or email is Meredith Pope at KW for Keller Williams, KW.com.
Okay.
And I just want to thank you all, Jen, and the folks at New Direction. You all are providing such good guidance and support and legal representation to so many people, like right back at you. You're doing good work. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I will echo that on to the rest of the team members, but we really appreciate that. And if anybody reaches out to us, seeking contact information, of course, we will send them your way. But
thank you.
If you guys have any questions about any real estate needs, feel free to reach out to Meredith or reach out to us, and we will do our best to put you in contact. So Meredith, again, thank you so much for all that you do and for joining me today. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.